I have been waiting for you. Welcome to my domain, the portal of dread. Here, each story is not merely a tale, but a portal I open directly to your worst nightmares. With me, fear is not just told, it is felt in the soul. Turn off the light. Lock the door. Let your own breath guide you through the inevitable labyrinth of madness. If you possess the foolish courage to cross this threshold, subscribe to the channel. And to prove your insolence, type in the comments, "I am not afraid." Now, prepare yourself. The unknown is already here. Today's story, Class 1001 of the Cursed CIEP. Have you ever felt that chill down your spine when you step into an empty classroom? That heavy, almost suffocating silence, as if the walls harbored secrets that ought not to be whispered. Perhaps you've experienced it returning to school on a rainy afternoon or passing through a darkened corridor after hours. It's a primal, instinctual fear. The fear that some places retain memory, that certain spaces do not forget what transpired within them. Now imagine an entire class, 26 teenagers, all behaving identically, laughing in unison, drawing the same symbols, reciting the same phrases without any prior coordination, and then vanishing, one by one or all at once, year after year, always the same class, always the same number. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt that a classroom had something amiss, that there was someone or something watching? Because what I'm about to recount defies all logical explanation. And it happened in a place where no one would ever imagine encountering hell. Brace yourself. This is the story of Class 1001. What would you do if you discovered that the ground beneath your feet harbors something that should never have been awakened? Ouro Preto, Minas Gerais, a city of steep slopes, Baroque churches, and dense fog that seems to never fully dissipate. Amidst colonial mansions and cobblestone alleys stands a building that starkly contrasts with the historic landscape. A stark, grey, concrete CIEP building, constructed in the 90s, isolated on a hill far removed from the city centre. From a distance, it appears to be just another public school in the hinterlands. But at night, when the fog ascends and envelops the edifice, nearby residents avoid glancing its way. They say the lights on the second floor flicker autonomously. That Latin chants can be heard echoing through the deserted corridors, and that, on certain nights, shadowy figures stir behind the windows of the classroom at the corridor's end. The classroom of Class 1001. Since 1995, no iteration of Class 1001 has concluded the academic year without tragedy. Mass fainting spells during lessons, students who develop identical behaviors overnight, inexplicable nervous breakdowns, and disappearances. Always disappearances. The administration attempts to suppress it. Transfers, they claim. Families who relocated. But the most senior teachers, however, know the truth. They have seen the archives locked away in the basement. They have read the reports that ought not to exist. They unearthed what was interred beneath the CIEP when it was constructed, because that ground was not, it was empty. Something had been there before. Something ancient, profoundly ancient. And in 2025, 3 teachers were about to discover that some secrets demand blood to remain interred. What they didn't know was that Class 1001 of that year had already been marked since the very first day of school, March 2025. The academic year commenced with the suffocating heat typical of rural Minas Gerais. Claudia Schneider, 58, a Portuguese teacher for 3 decades, woke up every morning at 5:30 a.m. Black coffee, unsweetened, her blonde hair at times impeccably styled in a bun. Always fashionably attired, for her, teaching was her life's mission, discipline, method, logic. There was no room for superstitions or corridor gossip in her routine. If anything peculiar occurred, a rational explanation existed, always. Marcia, also 58, was her antithesis. An art teacher, she wore natural stone necklaces, burned incense at home, and believed certain places carried heavy energies. Her students adored her for the freedom she offered, but colleagues found her peculiar. Marcia sensed things. Since childhood, unbidden shivers, invisible presences. And in that CIEP, especially on the second floor, she always felt something watching. Stella Dubois, 50, the youngest of the trio, was the afternoon Portuguese teacher. Sarcastic, irreverent, she smoked clandestinely in the teacher's restroom and joked about everything, including the school's legends. For Stella, it was small-town folklore, tales concocted by bored students and superstitious staff. She believed in nothing she couldn't see, touch, or empirically prove. The three had known each other for years, always close, long-standing friends. The CIEP Presidente Tancredo Neves was located 15 minutes from the center of Ouro Preto, on a dirt road that snaked uphill. The building had 3 floors, the ground floor for administration and the library, the first floor for elementary school classes, and the second floor for high school. The yellow paint on the exterior walls was peeling, the window grates rusted. The courtyard, always deserted even during breaks, students preferred to remain indoors despite the heat. There was something in the air of that place, a palpable weight, a density. The corridors were long and dimly lit, with fluorescent lamps that constantly flickered out. The scent was a mixture of mold, chalk, and something more, something cloyingly sweet and nauseating, like withered flowers. In the afternoon, the sun streamed through the windows, casting elongated shadows that seemed to move on their own. And at the end of the second floor corridor, the last door on the left, was classroom 1001. The room was slightly larger than the others, featuring tall windows that overlooked the vegetation-clad hill. The desks were perpetually misaligned, even after being straightened. The blackboard bore indelible stains, regardless of how many times it was scrubbed. And behind the teacher's desk, on the wall, a lighter rectangular mark was visible, as if something substantial had hung there for decades and had only recently been taken down. No one spoke of its meaning. Yet, on the first day of class, as Claudia stepped into that room for the initial time to meet her new students, she encountered something that brought her to an abrupt halt at the doorway. The 26 students of classroom 1001 sat in utter silence, all gazing fixedly at the same vacant wall, unblinking, as if awaiting the imminent arrival of something or someone. What Claudia, Marcia, and Stella did not realize, what no one at the school openly discussed, was that the very ground beneath them harbored a secret buried for over 2 centuries. In the teacher's lounge during the first week's break, Marcia casually remarked on the peculiar sensation she experienced upon entering room 101. Stella chuckled, as was her custom, but Claudia frowned. She, too, had observed something amiss. The students' unnatural stillness, the way they all appeared synchronized, even without explicit communication. It was then that Dona Irene, the retired librarian who still frequented the school as a volunteer, approached their table. She was 74, her hands trembled, and her eyes seemed to hold decades of untold secrets. "Are you assigned to classroom 1001 this year?" she inquired, her voice hushed, almost a whisper. The trio confirmed. Dona Irene took a deep breath and surveyed her surroundings before proceeding. "Then you must know the truth about what was here before." What she recounted chilled the 3 friends to the bone. Prior to the construction of the CIEP in 1992, that very site harbored the ruins of the Monastery of Lost Souls, erected in 1743 by an order of Carmelite nuns. The convent was renowned for its purification rituals, ceremonies designed to cleanse tormented souls and cast out demons from the possessed. In 1779, something went catastrophically awry. During a collective exorcism ritual, performed on 13 women accused of witchcraft by the local populace, the nuns were said to have accidentally invoked a primeval entity, something far more ancient and potent than any demon known to the church. Records from that era speak of screams that persisted for 3 days and 3 nights, of flames that erupted from beneath the convent's foundations, of nuns driven to madness, attempting to take their own lives, and of a sudden, absolute silence that followed, as if the very air had been vacuumed from the place. When colonial authorities finally gained entry to the monastery, they discovered all 13 accused women deceased, carbonized beyond recognition. The nuns, however, were nowhere to be found, and at the chapel's center, etched into the stone floor, lay a complex, circular symbol, 1,001 points radiating from a black core. The site was deemed cursed, sealed, forgotten, but the earth remembers. When the CIEP was constructed, Dona Irene continued, her voice growing increasingly tremulous. The workers unearthed the foundations of the old convent, and beneath the ground, a crypt sealed with lead and iron crosses. The construction company was explicitly instructed not to disturb it. But you know how these things go. Tight budgets, short deadlines. She paused, her eyes brimming with tears. They broke the seal, claimed they needed the space for the second floor's foundation. And do you know where they built it? Precisely atop the crypt? Marcia swallowed hard. Claudia felt a chill creep up her spine. The room at the end of the corridor. Last door on the left. Room 1001. Dona Irene then unveiled the grim truth. Ever since the CIEP's inauguration in 1995, every class designated with the number 1001 had been plagued by incidents. Students hospitalized with nervous breakdowns, mass fainting spells, self-mutilation. In 2003, 4 students vanished during a field trip, never to be found. In 2011, a student named Beatrice was discovered in the long-sealed basement, a space locked for years, reciting prayers in archaic Latin, a language she had never studied. The administration consistently suppressed these occurrences, forced transfers, families pressured into silence, files locked away in the subsoil archives. But the worst of it, Dona Irene whispered, is that the cleaning staff claim to hear knocking from beneath the floor of room 1001, as if something is trying to get out. That night, Marcia found sleep elusive. Claudia attempted to rationalize, but doubt gnawed at her logic. And Stella, for the first time, did not utter a single jest. For the very next day, upon entering room 1001 for their second class of the week, they discovered something that had not been there before. On the wall, where the rectangular mark had been visible, someone or something had drawn a circular symbol, with 1,001 points, rendered in what appeared to be dried blood. And below it, a phrase scrawled in Latin, Numerus perfectionis, Iannua aperta est. The number of perfection. The door has been opened. The discovery of the symbol on the wall rattled even Stella's skepticism. Claudia Schneider, ever methodical, was the first to react. She photographed the drawing with her cell phone and demanded an immediate meeting with Principal Noosa. Marcia Ricci stood transfixed before the wall, her face pale, murmuring something about energies far too dense. Stella Dubois attempted a joke about adolescent vandalism, but her voice emerged tremulous. The students of class 1001 watched in silence, seated, motionless, like statues of flesh. When the principal finally appeared, 40 minutes later, visibly exasperated, her reaction proved even more unsettling than the symbol itself. She gazed at the wall, paled for an instant but swiftly composed herself. "Vandalism," she declared, her voice unnaturally firm, artificial. "I'll call the cleaning crew. Continue with the lesson as usual." "Principal Noosa," Claudia insisted, displaying the photo on her phone. "This isn't ordinary paint. It looks like blood. It's old red paint. It oxidizes and takes on this color." The response was swift, rehearsed. "Please, do not alarm the students. We've had enough trouble with rumors in this school." Before any of them could protest, the principal exited the room, leaving a lingering trail of strong perfume and a suffocating tension in the air. It was Marcia who noticed first. "Claudia, Stella, look at their notebooks." The three approached the desks. Every student in class 1001 had their notebook open to the same page, and in every single one, everyone was the identical drawing, the circular symbol with 1,001 points, traced in black pen. Perfect. Identical. Claudia felt her stomach clench. "When did you do this?" she asked, endeavoring to keep her voice calm. No response. Stella's irritation flared. "I asked, when did you draw this?" Then, in unison, all 26 students simultaneously with the same monotonous intonation, they replied, "He taught us." The silence that ensued was deafening. Claudia took a step back. Marcia felt tears welling up. Stella, for the first time in years, could not mask the fear on her face. "Who taught you?" Marcia whispered, almost pleading for an answer that made sense. The 26 faces simultaneously turned toward the wall, towards the symbol. And a girl in the front row, Julia, 16 years old, always timid and quiet, pointed downwards at the floor. The listener. That afternoon during recess, the 3 teachers locked themselves in the staff room. Claudia tried to cling to logic. Mold intoxication, collective suggestion, some sort of coordinated macabre prank. Marcia wept softly, reiterating that something very wrong is here, something ancient. Stella smoked nervously, glancing at her cell phone, wanting to call someone but unsure of whom. It was then that events began to accelerate. The following day, during physical education class in the courtyard, all the students of class 1001 fainted simultaneously. Literally, as if a switch had been flicked off. 26 bodies collapsing simultaneously onto the concrete ground. The nurse found nothing amiss, normal blood pressure, normal heartbeats. Yet none of them awoke. Until precisely 7 minutes later, timed by Claudia, they all opened their eyes simultaneously and stood up, as if nothing had transpired. 3 days later, Stella was grading papers in room 1001 after school hours. The building was empty, or so it should have been. She heard footsteps in the corridor. Light, dragging, and then voices, many voices, whispering in unison. She couldn't discern the words, but the sound was wrong. It didn't emanate from above, nor from the sides. It emanated from beneath the floor. Stella fled. She abandoned the papers, her bag, everything. She only halted when she reached the parking lot, gasping for breath, her heart pounding, realizing she was weeping. Caio Moreira, 16 years old, had always been introspective. He read about occultism, ancient history, forgotten religions, intelligent yet isolated from his peers. On Friday of that week, during Marcia's class, he submitted an art project that rendered her speechless. It was an oil painting, exquisitely detailed. It depicted the interior of a burning chapel, hooded figures in a circle, and at its center, a faceless, black form, with arms extending in every direction. 1,001 arms. When Marcia inquired where he had found references for it, Caio smiled, a smile that did not suit his face, and replied, "I dream of it every night, ever since the door was opened." That very night, Claudia, Marcia, and Stella convened at Claudia's house. For the first time, the 3 conceded aloud. Something was gravely amiss, and it was deteriorating. Answers were imperative, and there was but one place they could be found: the school's locked cellar, where the ancient archives were kept, where Ms. Irene had claimed the administration concealed the truth, but gaining entry meant flouting regulations, breaching padlocks, and, quite possibly, unearthing something that was never meant to come to light. The question was no longer if they would go, it was when. Because for class 1001, time was rapidly diminishing, and the one who listens was drawing ever closer to the surface. Saturday night. The CIEP lay deserted. Only the security light at the main gate flickered erratically, casting grotesque shadows across the empty courtyard. Claudia, Marcia, and Stella gained entry through the rear side door, Marcia possessing a copy of the key, a privilege afforded an old-timer teacher. None spoke on their way through the school. A palpable fear gripped them, but the imperative to comprehend the unfolding events outweighed it. The cellar was situated in the building's sub-level, accessible solely via a concrete stairwell adjacent to the kitchen. The metal door was secured by a rusted padlock and a heavy chain. A faded sign read, "Restricted access, maintenance personnel only." Stella levered the padlock open with a crowbar she had brought. The metal yielded with a dry snap that reverberated through the empty corridor. The door swung open with a long, piercing screech. An odor of mildew, stale paper, and something cloyingly sweet. The very same scent of decaying flowers wafted up from the black maw of the stairwell. "It's not too late to turn back," Stella murmured, but her voice lacked conviction. Claudia activated her phone's flashlight and descended first. Marcia followed, muttering prayers under her breath. Stella brought up the rear, striving to regulate her breathing. The cellar was more expansive than they had anticipated. A labyrinth of narrow passages flanked by rusting metal shelves, boxes stacked precariously to the ceiling, and dust-shrouded files. There were also broken antique furniture, cracked blackboards, and something more. At the far end, partially obscured by a plastic tarp, stood a stone structure. Ancient. It clearly predated the modern construction of the CIEP. This is from the convent," Marcia whispered, her fingertips grazing the stone. "I can feel it. It's truly profoundly ancient." Claudia found a file box marked with red tape. Class 1001, Incidents 1995 to 2024, confidential. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside, dozens of reports, photographs, handwritten testimonies, medical findings, everything the board had concealed over 3 decades. 1995, 6 students hospitalized after a collective seizure crisis. Cause, undetermined. 1998, student Marina R. found on the school roof, attempting to jump. She claimed voices told her to jump. Transferred to a psychiatric institution. 2003, excursion to a historic farm. 4 students, Ana, Pedro, Lucas, and Fernanda, disappeared overnight. A search was conducted for 15 days. Their bodies were never found. 2007, substitute teacher Jorge Mendez suffered a nervous breakdown after 3 weeks teaching class 101, hospitalized. Diagnosis, acute psychosis. He repeatedly chanted in Latin, "Janua numquam clausa est." The door was never closed. 2011, student Beatrice S. found in the locked basement, entrance unknown, catatonic state. She recited liturgy in medieval Latin. Her family refused further treatment and moved out of the city. 2015, documented physical manifestations, objects moving on their own, sudden temperature drops from 28 degrees Celsius to 12 degrees Celsius in seconds. Audio recordings captured overlapping voices, reciting names in sequence. 2019, an attempted exorcism was secretly performed by Father Antonio. It was interrupted after the clergyman sustained burns on his hands without any apparent heat source. He refused to return. Claudia felt her hands grow clammy as she turned page after page. It wasn't mass hysteria. It wasn't suggestion. It was real, documented, repetitive. Then she found a separate folder. Older, stamped 1992, the year of construction. Inside, photographs of the excavation. Workers surrounding an opening in the ground, and there, partially visible, a stone crypt sealed with lead plates engraved with inverted crosses. But what made her drop everything and take a step back was the last photo. The crypt, open, empty, and on the stone floor, the symbol, 1001 points. Next to the photo, a handwritten note, almost illegible. Seal broken on 03/14/1992. Crypt empty. No human remains found. Recommendation: do not proceed with construction. Ignored by municipal order. That's when Marcia screamed. Stella and Claudia rushed to where she stood, before the stone structure covered by the tarp. Marcia had pulled back the plastic sheeting, and now they could all see. It wasn't just a wall, it was an entrance. A low stone archway leading into a descending tunnel. And on the sides of the archway, deeply carved into the rock, Latin words, Hic habitat qui audit omnia. Here dwells the one who hears all. And from the tunnel, rising like a cold, damp exhalation, came that smell. Withered flowers, flesh a sweetness masking decay. But the smell wasn't the worst part. It was the sound. Pounding, rhythmic, emanating from within the tunnel, as if something was ascending, slowly, unhurriedly. Tum, 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 and then a voice, or several overlapping voices, whispering their names. Claudia, Marcia, Stella. The three women fled. They stumbled up the stairs, leaving files scattered across the floor. The basement door slammed shut behind them with a resounding thud. They didn't stop until they reached the parking lot, gasping for breath, tears streaking their faces. But when they looked back at the CIEP building shrouded in darkness, they saw something that made their blood run cold. On the second floor, in the window of room 101, there was a faint light, and framed in the window, silhouettes. 26 silhouettes, all facing them, the students. On a Saturday night, in a locked school, merely observing. Sunday, none of them slept. Claudia Schneider spent the night poring over research, translating the Latin phrases, delving into historical records about the Monastery of Lost Souls. What she found left her even more profoundly terrified. The listener was not merely a name. It was an entity mentioned in medieval texts, forbidden by the church. A demon that did not possess individual bodies, but collective consciousnesses. It fed on communal dread, shared hysteria, and manifested through a multitude of individuals acting as a singular organism. The number 101 was no coincidence. In occult numerology, it represented corrupted perfection. The number 1000, divine totality, +1. The intruder, the corrupter, the evil that permeates. Each 1001 class was a renewed offering, a new cycle to fortify the entity. And this time, something had changed. The seal was not merely weakened, it was utterly shattered. But what the three teachers did not know was that it was already too late to avert the impending horror. Monday, first period. Claudia entered room 1001, resolved to confront the students, to demand answers, to contact their families. But when she opened the door, she found something that brought her to an abrupt halt in the doorway. The classroom had been meticulously rearranged. The desks were arranged in a perfect circle. At its center, etched onto the floor with red chalk, or was it blood, was the symbol of 1001 points, and the 26 students were kneeling around it, hands interlocked, eyes shut. Murmuring something in chilling unison, Claudia felt the breath drain from her lungs. "What are you doing? Get up now!" There was no reaction. She moved closer, attempting to pull Julia by the hand. The girl's skin, it was frigid, almost bluish. And then, everyone opened their eyes simultaneously. But they weren't human eyes. Their pupils were dilated to the point of covering the entire iris. Black, empty, and they all said in the same distorted, deep voice, "The door is open, he is ascending, and you called him." Claudia ran out, slamming the door shut. Her hands trembled so violently she could barely hold her phone to call Marcia and Stella. Meanwhile, Marcia Ricci was in the art room when she noticed something unsettling. All the works that the students of Class 121 had submitted the previous week, paintings, sculptures, collages, shared the same theme, human figures being dragged downwards. Hands emerging from the floor, mouths agape in silent screams. She picked up Caio's work again, the painting of the burning chapel. And that's when she saw it. In the bottom right corner, almost imperceptible, there were faces, faces of women, 13 faces, and she recognized one of them, Dona Irene, younger but unmistakable, wearing a nun's habit. Marcia dropped the painting. The frame shattered on the floor. Dona Irene hadn't just studied the monastery's history, she had been there. Stella Dubois, for her part, was investigating on her own. She went to Ouro Preto's central parish and demanded to speak with Father Antonio, the same one who had attempted the exorcism in 2019. The priest was visibly aged. His hands were covered in scars. His eyes were deep-set, haunted. When Stella mentioned Class 1001, he stood up abruptly, knocking over his coffee cup. "You shouldn't be here. No one should get involved with that. Father, I need to understand. What is he who listens?" The priest hesitated, then relented. His voice was a harsh whisper. "He is not a demon like the others. He does not possess. He absorbs. He consumes consciousnesses, memories, identities. He transforms multiple people into a single being, and the more he absorbs, the stronger he becomes." The nuns in 1779 didn't accidentally summon him. They tried to destroy him. They imprisoned him in a crypt sealed with prayers of containment etched into lead. But the ritual required 13 willing souls to maintain the seal. The nuns sacrificed themselves. They burned themselves alive to fuel the prison. A shiver ran down Stella's spine, and when they broke the seal in 1992, they unleashed something that had been starved for 200 years. The priest completed, and ever since, it feeds. Slowly, class by class, biding its time until it can fully breach the barriers separating its world from ours. And that moment is... The priest looked at her, his eyes brimming with despair. When it manages to absorb an entire group in one fell swoop, 26 souls simultaneously, that would grant it sufficient power to manifest physically, permanently. That afternoon, the 3 teachers convened at Claudia's house. They shared their findings. The puzzle was nearly complete. Dona Irene was a survivor of something. Perhaps a descendant of the nuns. Perhaps the custodian of a secret. The number 1001 was a portal, and Class 1001 of 2025 was on the verge of being consumed. "We need to get the students out of the school," Claudia stated, striving to maintain her composure. "And tell them what? That a demon is attempting to possess them," Stella retorted, but her voice was devoid of its usual sarcasm. Only fear remained. Marcia stood in silence, gazing out the window. When she finally spoke, her voice was a fractured whisper. "It's too late. Look." She pointed to the street. Marching in single file, in utter silence, all 26 students of Class 1001 proceeded past Claudia's house. They shouldn't have known where she lived, yet they did. And all of them turned their heads in unison, staring directly at the window where the 3 teachers stood, smiling, with that smile that was utterly inhuman. Then in unison they whispered, and somehow all 3 could hear, even through the sealed pane. "Tomorrow, midnight, return to the place where it all began, or we will come for you, one by one." That night, as they deliberated their next course of action, Marcia's phone rang. It was a message from an unknown number, a photograph of the school's basement, of the tunnel. But this time, it was not empty. Someone was there. Dona Irene, standing before the tunnel's entrance, clad in a faded nun's habit, clutching a broken crucifix. And behind her, emerging from the gloom, a form, vast, indefinite, composed of shadows and multiple arms extending in every direction, 1001 arms. Below the photograph, a typed message read, "It kept me alive for 246 years to guard the door, but you reopened it. Now it wishes to emerge, and I can finally rest. Forgive me." Claudia, Marcia, and Stella exchanged glances. The terror in all 3 pairs of eyes was identical, for they now understood the complete truth. Dona Irene was no ally. She was the entity's guardian, supernaturally sustained to ensure that once the seal was breached again, she would be there to guide the final liberation ritual. And that ritual was slated to occur the following night, in room 1001, at midnight, with the 3 teachers as witnesses, or sacrifices. Tuesday, 11:45 p.m. Claudia, Marcia, and Stella stood in the CIEP parking lot, gazing at the building shrouded in darkness. None of them wished to be there, yet they all knew they had no choice. They had attempted to alert the authorities. The police scoffed. The school board hung up. The students' families either didn't answer, or worse, they did, and uttered in monotonous, identical voices, "They are where they need to be." The entity had already begun to spread. "If we go in there, we might not come out," Stella said, lighting another cigarette with trembling hands. "If we don't go in, that thing will get out, and it won't stop with Class 1001. Claudia retorted, clutching a bag containing the only items Father Antonio had given them before refusing to accompany them: holy water, coarse salt, and an exorcism prayer written in medieval Latin. Marcia remained silent, her gaze fixed on the second floor. The windows of room 1001 gleamed with a faint, pulsating light, as if the very building itself were breathing. "I feel it," she whispered. "It's waiting for us." At the portal of dread, we know that not all stories have a happy ending, and what transpired that night defies all logic, any rational explanation. Yet, it happened, and 3 women had to confront hell head-on, midnight precisely. They entered through the main door, which stood unlocked, wide open like an obscene invitation. The ground floor corridor was empty, yet the air was heavy, dense, difficult to breathe. Every step echoed unnaturally, as if the sound multiplied and returned distorted. The lights flickered, died, then reignited. And then, at the end of the corridor, a figure appeared. Dona Irene. But she was no longer the frail 74-year-old woman. She stood erect, youthful, her face unlined, clad in a full nun's habit, her eyes completely black. "Finally," she declared, her voice overlaid by others, a chorus of whispers. "The 3 sacrificed have arrived." "We are not sacrifices," Claudia retorted, attempting to maintain her composure in the voice. Dona Irene, or whatever entity inhabited her, smiled. "Do you truly believe you have a choice? It has already begun. The 26 are within the circle. The invocation is complete. Only the blood remains." "Whose blood?" Stella inquired, though she already knew the answer. "The blood of the guardians, 3 women bound by ties of friendship and purpose, just as the last 3 nuns who sealed the crypt were. History repeats itself. It always does." Marcia stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "We won't let you do this. You possess no power to stop me." Dona Irene extended her arms, and from within her body, other forms began to emerge. Somber silhouettes, faces screaming in silent agony. The 13 nuns, the victims of 1779, all trapped within her for centuries. And then she vanished, dissolving into the shadows like smoke. The 3 teachers rushed upstairs. Their hearts pounded erratically. The second floor was even more shrouded in gloom. All the lamps were burnt out. The only illumination emanated from the end of the corridor, from room 1001. As they forced the door open, the sight that met their eyes chilled them to the bone. The 26 students were arranged in a circle, kneeling, hands intertwined. At its center, the symbol of 1001 points glowed, not merely drawn, but seared into the wooden floor, emitting a pulsating red light. And surrounding the circle, hovering mere inches above the floor, were objects, dozens of them. Shattered crucifixes, stone fragments from the ancient convent, aged photographs of vanished students, all rotated slowly, like satellites orbiting a black sun. Dona Irene stood at the circle's epicenter, her back to the door. "Welcome to the rebirth," she uttered, without turning. Claudia scattered the coarse salt in a straight line before the door. Marcia clutched the crucifix with both hands, reciting prayers her grandmother had taught her in childhood. Stella, despite her trembling, began to read aloud the Latin prayer of exorcism that Father Antonio had provided them. "Exorcizo te omnis spiritus immunde." The reaction was instantaneous. The students shrieked, all at once, a high-pitched, inhuman scream that caused the window panes to crack. Dona Irene turned, and her face was disintegrating, revealing something beneath, something devoid of skin, without definite form. "You cannot avert the inevitable." The voice was no longer hers. It was a chorus of thousands, of all the souls that the entity had assimilated over the centuries. Then, an unforeseen event transpired. Caio, the introspective student who appeared to possess knowledge beyond his disclosures, rose from the circle. Alone, resting against the force that had ensnared him. He fixed his gaze upon the three teachers, and for the first time in weeks, his eyes were unequivocally his own. "The symbol! Destroy the symbol!" he shrieked before collapsing back to his knees, convulsing violently. Claudia comprehended. The symbol etched into the floor served as the anchor, the entity's tangible gateway to this plane of existence. Seizing the bottle of holy water, she dashed towards the room's epicenter. Dona Irene attempted to intercept her, but Marcia hurled herself upon the creature, shrieking, restraining it with a desperate, superhuman strength. Stella persisted in reciting the prayer, her voice escalating in volume, even as it faltered, even as blood streamed from her nose, a consequence of the immense mental pressure. Claudia deluged the scorched symbol with the holy water. The ensuing reaction was apocalyptic. The entire chamber convulsed. The walls fissured. The floor cleaved open with gaping crevices. And from the symbol, a black luminescence, a darkness so profoundly dense as to be perceptible, erupted skyward, piercing through the ceiling, ascending like a column of pure negation. Within that luminescence, forms materialized, hundreds of them, shrieking, weeping, being inexorably drawn back. The students succumbed to unconsciousness. Dona Irene emitted a final, profound scream, this time a cry of sheer relief before her body instantaneously regressed, reverting to its 74-year-old state and subsequently disintegrated into ash. The symbol upon the floor extinguished itself. An absolute silence descended. 4 minutes subsequently, the wail of sirens pierced the air, followed by ambulances, police, and firefighters. The structural integrity of the second floor had partially compromised. Room 1001 lay utterly devastated, yet all 26 students were alive, unconscious but undeniably alive. Claudia, Marcia, and Stella were transported to the hospital. Shock, the physicians reported, trauma, smoke inhalation, despite the conspicuous absence of any fire. None of them divulged the truth. Indeed, who would have lent credence to such an account? 3 weeks hence, the CIEP facility was cordoned off for extensive renovations. Claudia, Marcia, and Stella sought transfers to other educational institutions. Not one of them ever set foot in the building again. Caio, the sole student retaining any recollection of that harrowing night, sought out Claudia prior to his family's relocation to São Paulo. "Teacher, you destroyed the symbol. But what, Caio?" He hesitated, then displayed something on his cell phone, a photograph captured on the night of the incident, from the basement, the crypt, the tunnel entrance. And there, etched into the stone, still pristinely intact, another symbol, identical to thee that was in the room. "There were two," he whispered. "One above, one below. You only destroyed one." Claudia felt the world spin. "So it's still..." Caio nodded, his eyes welling up. "Trapped, but not destroyed. And with the building condemned, no one will be watching it." He turned to leave, but paused. "Teacher, they're going to reopen the school, and they're going to form a new class. And what will its number be?" Caio didn't need to answer. Both already knew. 6 months later, September 2025. The CIEP Presidente Tancredo Neves was reopened with great fanfare. Structural renovations, fresh paint, modern furniture. The city council wanted to erase the past, to make everyone forget the incident that the press had classified as toxic gas leak causing mass hallucination. Official version: convenient, false. Claudia Schneider was teaching at another school 40 kilometers from Ouro Preto. She woke up in the dead of night with nightmares. Always the same scene, the burnt symbol on the floor, the black light rising, and those 1,001 arms reaching out from the shadows. Marcia Ricci moved to the coast, abandoned teaching, started working in a craft store. but she could no longer draw. Every time she picked up a pencil, her hand involuntarily traced circles with points. Many points. Stella Dubois continued teaching, but something in her had changed. The sarcasm had vanished. She no longer smoked. She didn't make jokes. She just taught, mechanically, distantly, as if a part of her was still trapped in that room. The three kept in touch. Weekly calls. They never spoke directly about that night, but they all knew they carried the same burden, the same certainty. It wasn't over, and they were right. In October, Claudia received a call from an unknown number. On the other end, a young voice, nervous. "Professor Claudia, it's Amanda. I was in class 1001 that night." Claudia's heart pounded. "Amanda, are you all right? How did you get my number?" "Professor, I remember everything. We all remember, but no one believes us. Our parents say it was a hallucination. The doctors gave us medicine, but I know what happened, and I know it's not over." Claudia closed her eyes, took a deep breath. "Why are you calling me?" There was a long pause. Then Amanda whispered, "Because the CIEP reopened, and they formed a new class, and its number..." Claudia didn't need to hear the rest. 1001, she completed, her voice breaking. "Yes, and Professor, they put the class in the same room. They renovated her, but it's the same room. End of the hallway, second floor, last door on the left." Amanda took a deep breath before continuing. "And there's more. Yesterday, the math teacher fainted during class. When she regained consciousness, she remembered nothing of the last 20 minutes, but the students reported that she had stood motionless, staring at the wall, whispering numbers in sequence." "What numbers?" 1001, 1001, 1001. Non-stop. That very night, Claudia called Marcia and Stella. A conference call. For the first time in months, the three spoke openly about what had transpired. "We didn't destroy it," Marcia said, her voice laden with guilt. "We only postponed it." "So what do we do?" Stella asked. "Do we go back? Do we try to destroy the other symbol?" Claudia hesitated. Part of her wanted to forget, to move on, to let someone else deal with it. But then she remembered the faces of the 26 students, of Caio battling against possession to warn them, of Dona Irene, trapped for 246 years as the guardian of an evil she had not chosen to serve. "We cannot let this happen again," Claudia stated firmly. "Not with another class, not with other children." Marcia sighed. "Then we need to finish what we started. But this time," Stella added, "we need help. We need someone who truly knows how to destroy this thing." The three agreed. There was one name, a singular name that could assist them: Father Antonio, and he would have to confront his demons, literally, if they were to have any chance. At the portal of dread, we know that not all stories have happy endings, and some never truly end. 2 days later, Claudia was driving back to Ouro Preto. Marcia and Stella would follow the next day. Father Antonio, though reluctant, had agreed to meet them. But as Claudia drove past the road leading to the CIEP, she slowed down. And she looked. The building stood there, yellow, renovated, illuminated by the afternoon sun. But in the second-story window, the last one on the left, she saw it, a shadow, brief, swift. And then for a second, 26 faces, all pressed against the glass, staring at her, smiling. She accelerated. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. Her heart pounded, because she knew the listener had not been defeated, only dormant, and now it had a new class, new bodies, new souls. And this time, it wouldn't be so easy to imprison. Remember, at the portal of dread, reality is more terrifying than any fiction. And you? Can you imagine studying in a school built on a cursed place? Do you think Claudia, Marcia, and Stella will manage to destroy he who listens once and for all, or is evil eternal? Leave your opinion in the comments. Tell us, would you dare to enter that room? If this story sent shivers down your spine, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss our next real-life horror accounts. And if you have a true story of something supernatural you've experienced, send it to us. Your experience could be our next episode. Share this video with that friend who doesn't believe in anything until they watch the Portal of Dread. Thank you for traversing this dark night with us on the Portal of Dread. Now tell me, would you dare to be a teacher in class 1001? Share in the comments. If you can sleep tonight, don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell to receive more spine-chilling stories every week. Sleep well, if you can. Until the next account, good night, and until the next Portal of Dread video.